Inside of this box are over 1,000 of the world's most aggressive ants, and over the next 100 days, they will face the ultimate test. As their numbers grow, they will take on 3 deadly predators, each progressively more dangerous than the last and harder to bring down. And we'll get to watch how over 1,000 killer ants swarm their prey, and see how this tiny colony must grow and evolve in order to survive. This video is sponsored by Aesthetic Ants. Over the first 100 days, this once small colony with only a few workers has already grown into a formidable force. This young colony has around 50 workers on day 101, and as they grow stronger over time, they will have to prove themselves by facing 3 deadly challenges. And by day 130, the colony had nearly doubled in size, and they were hungry. These ants are always on the move, searching for food to feed their hungry larvae, so I figured that now was the perfect time to introduce their first challenge. But there are some even crazier ants out there, equipped with venomous stingers powerful enough to bring down prey that are thousands of times their size, and I plan to get some. So if you want to see me take on the challenge of keeping some of the most dangerous ants in the world, leave a like and let me know in the comments what your favorite ant species are and what ones you'd like to see me test against live prey next. Equipped with venomous fangs capable of bringing down ants in a matter of seconds, this spider is fast and unpredictable and will be the perfect starter challenge for this young colony. But this was still just the beginning. As soon as I dropped the spider into the outworld, the ants immediately sensed the threat and they went into full-on attack mode, chasing it around the enclosure. But the spider was fast, making quick and coordinated moves to avoid the ants. It tried to climb the slippery walls of the enclosure, but it couldn't gain any traction. And as more ants began pouring into the outworld, the spider was quickly running out of options. And after a few minutes, the outworld was now swarming with ants, and the spider could no longer escape. It only took one wrong move, and an ant managed to latch onto one of its legs, slowing it down for just a moment too long, and that's all it took. Within seconds, the spider was completely covered by ants, spraying acid and trying to pin it to the ground. The spider fought back desperately, but it was no match for the colony's sheer numbers. And as the ants began to chew through its legs, the spider's movement slowed, and after only just a couple of minutes, it drew its last breath. The ants had successfully completed their first challenge, and they could now use the spider's body to feed their growing young. But this first challenge was only just the beginning. The ants must now focus on growing their empire because their next challenge would be far more difficult and a lot harder to bring down. By day 160, the colony had grown exponentially in size. There were now hundreds of workers and tons of ant larvae in need of food. The colony's strength had grown, and they have now just hatched their very first soldier ant. These ants are much bigger than the average worker, and with heads twice the size and full of muscle, these ants are the true bodyguards of the nest. The ants' aggression had also only grown, and with the arrival of the newly hatched soldiers, it was now time for them to face their second challenge. This is a crane fly, also known as a mosquito eater, and with powerful wings, long thrashing legs, and sharp mouth parts, this opponent wouldn't go down without a fight. But the ants were ready, with dozens swarming around the outworld looking for food, and right as I dropped the fly inside, the ants wasted no time, and after only a split second, they were all over it. The ants instantly swarmed the fly, biting its legs and anchoring themselves in an attempt to pin the fly down. One ant even latched onto the fly's face with its mandibles and refused to let go. It was clear that this fly stood no chance, and within minutes the ants began to tear it apart, ripping off its legs and wings one by one while the fly was still struggling, and then carrying them back off into the nest. And once all of the legs were safely inside of the nest, the ants then began to feed on the fly's body while it was still alive, and they began cutting it up into pieces to bring back to feed their hungry larvae. This colony was now clearly much stronger, and I realized I had severely underestimated them. And as the colony continued to grow in powers and numbers, I knew that I had to up the stakes. The ants' third and final challenge would have to be their greatest yet: fast, powerful, and equipped with weapons capable of bringing ants down, and I knew just what to give them. For those of you who already keep ants or want to keep ants of your very own, Aesthetic Ants has everything that you'll need to get started. Use my code ANTSANATOMY10 in the description for 10% off anything on their site. They also offer free worldwide shipping on orders over €100, so no matter where you are, you can start your own ant adventure. It is now day 200, and the colony is thriving like never before. Over the past 100 days, their numbers have exploded, and they now nearly filled up the entire nest. They now have multiple soldiers ready to fight, hundreds of workers, and countless hungry larvae waiting to be fed. The colony is now stronger than ever, and they are now ready to face their third and deadliest challenge. Here in front of me is a giant wasp, equipped with razor-sharp mandibles, a venomous sting, and enough speed to escape most threats, but can it escape the swarm? I dropped it into the outworld, and immediately the ants sense an intruder. A few of the ants instantly started to attack the wasp, but this foe was much stronger. Dragging the ants up the side of the container as they struggled to keep their grip, it would take more than just a few ants to bring this predator down, and the ants called for backup. And as the ants began to pour out of the nest in a furious swarm, the wasp darted towards the entrance, only to be met by an onslaught of angry ants. And before it had a chance to react, dozens of ants leaped right onto it, latching onto its legs in a coordinated effort to bring the intruder down. And in the struggle, the wasp fell off the side of the enclosure and onto its back. By this point, there were dozens of ants attacking the wasp, but it wasn't giving up. The wasp began to attack the ants with its jaws and its venomous sting, and although the wasp managed to wound a few ants with its jaws, it was no match for the swarm. And in one last effort, the wasp scrambled onto its feet, trying to escape the ants, but exhaustion had set in, and the ants had showed no mercy. They quickly grabbed onto each of the wasp's legs and pinned it once more to the ground, and with its body being pulled apart in all directions by the ants, the wasp had lost the battle, and within minutes the ants had decapitated it and started bringing its remains back to the nest. And with that, the wasp's fate was sealed, and the ants had successfully completed their third and final challenge. They could now feed the wasp's remains to the rest of the colony and further fuel their growing empire. Over the last 200 days, this killer ant colony went from just a few workers and slowly built their empire to become an unstoppable force, taking down faster, stronger, and deadlier enemies than ever before. But this war was still far from over. What challenges should this colony face next? Let me know in the comments below, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel to follow this colony and many others as they prepare to face their next deadly challenges. And with that, thank you all for watching this week's video, and until next time, have a good day and peace.